What's up, guys? And ladies. In this episode, I'm going to show you how I modified and repainted the Marvel Legends Legendary Riders series Wolverine with motorcycle. So I recently scooped up this Wolverine and bike set. So in my opinion, this is like the coolest Hasbro Legendary Riders figure and bike that's come out yet. But there's still a lot to be desired. I'm not really feeling this Wolverine head. The body and the tire's cool. Not feeling this head though. The patch head's cool. But this motorcycle is probably the biggest disappointment because there's like absolutely no paint. The only paint on the whole bike is on the lights and the handle grips. They're painted black just on the grips. Everything else is just solid plastic, solid blue plastic, silver plastic, black. Oh, and then we got some silver on the buckle, so there's a little bit more paint there, but virtually there's no paint on this bike. So what I'm going to do is take it completely apart, sand it, prime it, paint it, and hopefully bring out some of the details, add my own flair to it, and make this bike look 100 times better. Now, I've done stuff like this before with some bikes. These are actually smaller. These would be more like catered to like 3A because it's on the smaller 1/12 kind of style. But same thing, these bikes were really great, just lacking the paint detail. So I'm going to do the same kind of paint job where it's a matte black with the brown leather seat. Bring out some of the detail in the engine components with actually like silver metallic paint and not just like silver plastic, and add some dinge and grunge to it. And I have another one right here too. So disassembling this was definitely more challenged than I thought it was. See, it was a big psych out because they have these big obvious holes where you could take all these screws out. So I was like, cool, this will be an easy disassembly. You know, I thought they made the obvious screws right there, and knowing they didn't put any paint, knowing that customizers and collectors are going to disassemble it and repaint it. Well, I was a little wrong because a lot of the parts are glued, so it's almost like taking apart a Marvel Legend. You have to heat it up with a lot of heat. So like this was rubber right here, and these were pegged in, so you had to heat up the glue and yank them out carefully. Same thing with this, and the only part I couldn't disassemble was part of the frame, was this part. This pin is in there super good, and this plastic is really soft, so I already made a dent right here, so I didn't want to keep damaging this. So, but I could work with this because I'm just going to sand and prime, and so this isn't really going to rub on anything, so I could leave it like that. No big deal. Everything else was semi-simple. The front forks was probably the hardest because there's this pin, so it's a little barbell pin, but it disassembles. There's this piece that goes into it, and it was glued, and it's like this metal, and it's got this cut design on it. So I couldn't disassemble it until I got it out, so I had to heat this up and yank it out. And that was so hard because once this is soft, this is like gummy. So taking apart the front forks was probably the hardest. Everything else wasn't too bad. So pretty much everything but the tires is gonna get sanded, cleaned, primed, and painted. Oh, and then the headlamp right here. So this headlamp I didn't want to get off actually because this is soft. Any little mark will make a mark on this. And so this is just glued in. You can see it has two pegs right here. There's probably glue. If I put enough heat, I could probably wiggle it off. But this shit's really delicate. Even like a little screwdriver is going to leave a mark. So what I'm just going to do is just tape off this, because I didn't want to try risking damaging the plastic just to get this headlamp off. So I'm just going to tape it. That way you can still have the headlamp. But everything else, other than the tires, is going to get sanded, cleaned, primed, and then ready for paint. So if you've never done like taking apart a Marvel Legend figure, or taking apart something like this where it's more than just taking apart screws, where you gotta heat up glue and crack stuff open and heat stuff up and yank it out, I'd probably recommend not doing it because you don't want to, one, hurt yourself, two, damage your toy or your figure or the product, whatever you're disassembling. In this case, disassembling the bike, you don't want to damage it, especially if you don't know how to fix it. But I do believe it's necessary to disassemble something completely. Prepping meaning like cleaning it and sanding it and everything, and priming it and painting it. Now you can paint it fully assembled, most definitely. But I think the paint job isn't going to be as clean, and it's not going to have the longevity. Because after a while it might chip, and spots that you couldn't sand and prime, it's always the best if you could sand, clean, prime. You know, you're going to get the best life and everything out of your paint job, and you're going to get the best paint job out of it. But to each his own. You know, you do what works for you. This works for me. I've been doing it this way.
So I got all my pieces primed up, ready to go. So I'm gonna start painting them. And then I got these bikes. These are the bikes that I did before. I think they're like Maisto bikes. I don't know. They're just 1/12 scale bikes. And so these are the ones I've painted before. So I'm gonna try to model my Legendary Rider's bike after those. All right, let's get painting.
All right, so I got a majority of the bike assembled. I'm about halfway through. I have to just assemble the front end, and then it needs more paint too. So I got the base layers put down. I got to add more washes, dinge it up a bit, do a little dry brushing, a little paint detail, and then be all finished. So if you viewed some of my other customizing videos, you know that I usually always use Citadel Paints. So these are the paints I use to paint up the bike. The iron breaker that's in the middle, I use that for all the metal looking pieces. Like I said, I didn't try to go with any chrome paint or anything. I wanted it to kind of look like a dull metal. And then the two to the left, the larger bottles, those are going to be shades or a wash. The dirty brown one and the black one, I kind of just went back and forth with those. I'd use a lot of the black one to seep in all the crevices to help make the sculpt on the engine and everything pop, and then I'd put a little bit of the dirty brown one on there. With the iron breaker, I'd dry brush so you can kind of get some of the dirt and grime in there. Definitely wanted some of that. Then we get over to the brown, and I use that with the black to get the color of the seat. And then I also use a watered down part of the brown and kind of flickered to get some like dirt specks on there, just to kind of help dirty it up a little bit too. And then to get the whole thing black, I actually used a Citadel spray primer called Chaos Black, and that stuff is really good. If you clean and sand the plastic and spray it on there, it like bonds to certain plastic, so it won't even scratch off. And these paints, I get them at my local comic shop. So you should be able to get them at your gaming shop, your comic shop, or on the internet somewhere. They're called Citadel Paints. You should be able to look it up. But usually most comic shops that I've been to usually always carry or have a small little Citadel section. So Logan's bike is all painted up, reassembled, and all done. So I added a bunch of wash and dry brush to make some of the sculpt on the engine parts pop. The majority of everything's blacked out other than the metal pieces and stuff. I don't have anything chrome, it's just all dull metal. I did add an accessory. I have the rolled up Mexican blanket. So I made this little accessory. I screen printed this design that I came up with on this fabric, and then I had these little straps right here that I wrapped on there. My friend actually rides a Harley, and he has like a little Mexican blanket folded up on it. So I thought that'd be a cool accessory. And I will be selling some of these here pretty soon, so definitely check out my Instagram, punker_Mike. I'll post some updates on there. And then also on my Facebook page, it's Punker Mike's Props and Dials. That's usually where I sell a majority of my props and stuff when I do put stuff up for sale. It's usually on that outlet. So the Mexican blanket can kind of just sit on the back on top of the saddlebags. Or if you wanted, you can also kind of like mess with it somehow and kind of try to put it up front right there. That kind of looks cool too. Also for the mirror, I actually put in a little mirror sticker, so you can kind of see it's like kind of reflective a little bit. And I thought that was kind of a cool touch, putting a little mirror sticker. Definitely hard to measure it and cut it in there properly, but I did a decent job. It's a little sloppy, but I thought that was kind of a cool touch. You can kind of see the reflection of my finger a little bit. The bike also looks really cool without the saddlebags too. I mean, you do have this little nub right here, but you can always hide it with the cool blanket. Or actually, I think I like the blanket more like against the seat, like somewhere in between right here. I think that would look cool, even though you can kind of still see it. But I think that little blanket accessory is pretty tight. So looking at the finished product here, I think I might want to go back and repaint the lights orange, like a light orange, because I don't know, I'm not really feeling the red after all said and done. I think the orange might be a little better. And then the screw holes fill those in with sculpt and paint over them. I think it'll look a little better, but you know, not the biggest deal. So this is the same figure from the set. I just switched out the head on him. This head is from the Marvel Legends vintage brown suited Wolverine, but I modified it a little bit. So I repainted the eyes and the face a little bit. I cleaned up the hairline, and I sculpted a little bit of extra hair to give him the kind of pointy hair. I'm not 100% sold on it. I want to get another one and try something where it meets the middle of the backside of his head, make it a little more fuller. But I think it looks pretty cool. And then I got a little cigar prop, and then a little bit of polyester to make it look like smoke. So I hope you guys liked this video. I hope it inspired you to mod up some of your action figures. Check out some of my other videos. Subscribe if you haven't already. You can check out my Instagram. It's punker_Mike. And we'll see you next time.